let's be honest, most couples today aren't struggling with marriage because they don't love each other.
They're failing because they're exhausted, they're disconnected, they're trying to build intimacy in a culture that's pulling them apart.
There's a lot of things within the Amish community that the outside world doesn't get to see because it's so closed off. Like, we don't believe in using phones, most cases. We don't believe in using modern technology like video. I remember the first time listening to country songs at like 5 years old. And I just remember feeling so guilty, but yet enjoying it so much. I look at the modern culture now and see all the tools that are available to go cheat on your wife. It's devastating to our marriages.
Welcome to Marriage IQ, the podcast helping you become an intelligent spouse.
I'm Heidi Hastings.
And I'm Scott Hastings.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Marriage IQ. You know, Heidi, on this podcast, we have intelligent spouses wanting to learn how to be just more alive. We've used a lot of words on this program: scintillate, intelligent. Today, I think perspective comes to mind.
Well, today we're stepping into a completely different world.
A world where divorce is rare, community comes before comfort, and marriage isn't about me, it's about becoming.
That's right. And we're talking today with an Amish man who grew up inside a culture that's been quietly building lifelong marriages for many generations.
Yeah, we're asking these questions most of us are afraid to ask. What does a successful marriage really look like when you remove all these modern distractions?
People who don't use smartphones, who don't date in a traditional way that a lot of us have, and who sometimes don't even have electricity. Let's be honest, most couples today aren't struggling with marriage because they don't love each other.
They're failing because they're exhausted, they're disconnected. They're trying to build intimacy in a culture that's pulling them apart.
And believe us, this is the story of our life sometimes. We are not immune from this, even though we talk about marriage all the time. But by the end of this episode, we hope that both you and we won't just see Amish marriages differently, but we'll see our own marriages differently. So welcome, Enos Hershberger. Enos, we're so happy to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me on. It's such an honor to be with you guys and to be able to share a little bit of the Amish perspective on marriage.
That's wonderful. We've been looking forward to this for a few months. I met Enos at a conference a couple of months ago. Enos grew up Amish in one of the most conservative communities in southern Minnesota. He's been married to his wife for 13 years and is very busy raising 5 children and building businesses that are built in people first values. He loves real conversations, community, and connecting to others through story, faith, and life experiences. So we are really looking forward to hearing some of his perspectives and stories.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. That's quite the introduction. Greatly appreciate that.
If you had 10 seconds to describe what makes an Amish marriage successful and different, what would you say?
Yeah, I'd say just the commitment to one another. That's a pretty strong thing in the Amish community. So
10 seconds.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's
a lot of pressure on you.
Jeez. Hey, it's great. You got to get right to the point. You know, if I could use one word to describe the Amish marriage, it's commitment, for sure.
I love that.
Enos, tell us a little bit about you. I mean, you were born into this Amish community, right?
Okay. Yeah, I'd love to share that. Yeah, I grew up in rural Minnesota. We started out on a farm, small farm considered, but big farm for Amish because everything's done with horses and buggies and, draft horses for plowing. So we had about 120 acres, I believe, to start out with. And I was second to youngest out of 13. My 3 oldest brothers, unfortunately, I never got to meet them. They passed in a house fire, and I can expand on that later on. But yeah, I grew up in rural Minnesota, like I said, on an Amish farm, milking cows by hand. And, I tell all kinds of stories to my kids now because it was really, really difficult. Although, growing up that way, as a kid, you didn't really think much of it other than you look to people from the outside and say, well, man, it'd be great if I could live like them. And that's ultimately I ended up getting out. But yeah, I just really looked at the neighbors and the people around us that were not driving horses and buggies, and I thought, man, like they have it so nice and they have it so easy. But obviously, as you guys know, once you get out into the real world, it's not all that it's cracked up to be.
So you mentioned getting out. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that? And are you still practicing Amish faith and culture traditions at all? Or tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, I do a podcast as well where we talk a lot about the Amish culture and getting out. And a lot of people are confused about what do you mean getting out? Like, why would you ever want to leave the Amish? And my answer to that is there's a lot of things within the Amish community that the outside world doesn't get to see because it's so closed off. Like, we don't believe in using phone, most cases. We don't believe in using modern technology like video. They don't want any videos or photos. All the photos that I have of myself were done in secret when I was a kid. So there is a lot of that where we, growing up, we would bring in radios. We would hide them from our parents. We live in secret. I remember the first time listening to country songs at like 5 years old. And I just remember feeling so guilty but yet enjoying it so much because I love music and we were just not allowed to participate in it. Then I had to keep that secret for the rest of my life until I left, because I couldn't talk to my parents about it. And the way they deal with that is if they do catch you listening to music, like they would make me take the radio and throw it in the wood stove, which, we burn wood all the time. So it would burn very quickly.
Wow.
Wow.
That's how they handle it.
I never thought of listening to country music as a guilty pleasure. That is a new one for me.
I mean, you can listen to Jesus music and they'd still frown about it.
Really?
Yeah, for sure. It's a very structured way of living is the way that I like to explain it. It's a great way of living if someone doesn't mind hard work and going back into the 1930s or something like that.
If music was forbidden, tell me what dating was like. Did you have dating? Was it different than modern dating?
That's a great question, too. It was quite different. I will say I am not a huge fan of Amish dating, but I did date in the Amish community. I didn't date my current wife. We met after we both had left the Amish community. Even though we were both Amish, we met outside the Amish community. But I dated one girl inside the Amish community. And the way that works is when you're 16 and a half, growing up in the sports and trooper community, which is what it's called in the way that I live, like sports and trooper Amish, they're the most conservative Amish. And so the way they have their dating structure is at 16 and a half, you join the youth and then you begin to be available for dating, I guess. Up until that point, you cannot date. You're not allowed to date. You may have a secret crush, but you and your crush don't talk. The dating is really, really awkward. So it's mostly put together by people within the community. So let's say I have a crush on the neighbor's daughter and we're not related. And
we're not
then
related. That's important.
We're not related. Now, there's a lot of related people that get married. I will just say that it's kind of
Small
it's
community.
kind of weird, and I'm so thankful that it didn't happen to me. But it's one thing that people like to comment. So, are you married to your cousin? I'm not aware that I'm married to my.
Not that you know of.
I said I have 5 kids at this point. If I was married to my cousin, I guess I just have to live with it. But no, it is kind of an awkward thing. And then maybe my best friend, as a guy, best friend would figure out, hey, like I have a crush on this girl. And if he's a really good friend, he would say, hey, would you like for me to go talk to her and see if she's interested in you? That's how it's handled.
That sounds pretty normal for other cultures,
Yeah.
for modern day
That
cultures.
tracks.
Maybe a little younger than 16 and a half a lot of times, but
Yeah, and I can expand on that. It's not quite as cut and dry as that. Like he may go talk to her, but then at that point, if she's somewhat interested, then a group of maybe her friends or just a group of guys in general within the church, they would then pair you two together and they'd make a whole big scene out of it. So like they bring me to her house, she stays at her house, and then they put you in bed. And a lot of times just for a stunt. They'll take the bed sheet and tie us together like
For a first date?
Wait, who does this?
for a first date. Right? It's like you're hearing this for the first time, and it's probably not explained in this way anywhere else online that I'm aware of.
Wait, this is sanctioned by the Amish community?
Yes.
Okay. That is interesting.
That's why we have such a strong bond when we actually do get married. Just think about that.
I hear you, man.
No, that is the sort of awkward part of it that I'm explaining, because if I wasn't like super into this girl in the beginning, just imagine, that scene where you're stuck with a girl that I'm not even sure that I like. And that did happen to me once, not the girl that I dated, but another girl that they were trying to pair me up with. And I almost jumped out of a 3-story window because I'm like, you guys are ridiculous. Like, this is not okay.
So they tie you together, and then what? Do you just sit and talk?
At
You
that
allowed to
point, it's,
kiss?
that is a great question.
Well, if I liked the girl, I'd probably want to. I mean, geez.
Well, yeah, if you like the girl, hey, like, you're tying together, it's the best thing that can happen to you, right? Even if you like the girl, most times the guys, they pretend like they want to resist just to bring more, I don't know.
Oh, they want tension in it.
Mm.
Yeah, they
What?
want tension, and absolutely forbidden to have sex. Absolutely not encouraged to kiss. Like,
Okay.
those are two things that are,
But you
that
can
are
be
very
tied
much
together
fun.
by bed sheets in a bed.
Yeah.
That's fine. Wow.
Yeah, explain that one.
I am learning a lot
But
here.
with no romantic music going on.
No, that's
No.
silent. I mean,
You start singing to her or what?
Jeez.
No, at that point, you're just listening to all the crickets, and I mean, it's that silent. Yeah.
What would a second date look like?
So second date is actually completely different. In terms of, you like the girl, you just show up at her house 2 weeks later. So you just show up, and the girl may be up waiting, anticipating that the guy's going to show up. And if the guy didn't like the girl, he's never even going to announce it, but he's just not going to show up.
And
And
it's 2
That's
weeks,
devastating.
not
for
1
her.
week.
Yeah.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
2 weeks, every 2 weeks. That you get to go on what's called like an actual date, so a week in between. So church is every 2 weeks. So they have singing every 2 weeks.
Wait,
So the youth
what are
gather.
singings?
So like a singing would be where the youth gather together. And if you've ever seen that video where there's a bunch of Amish people sitting around just singing, you
Huh.
may not have seen that, but you could check that out on YouTube. There's some on there, but they just sit and sing. It's all in almost perfect harmony. It's actually really beautiful. It's very
Mhm.
touching. But most of the times, that's where you like put eyes on a girl. You go to a singing, like you see a girl that you really like, and then that's where it starts within the singings because it's a youth gathering. So that gives you another opportunity to see your girl. Maybe not go on a date with her, but like at least you get to see her.
Put your eyes on her, as you said.
Yeah. But your eyes on her. Yep.
So how does an Amish couple then decide to get married? How many dates do you go on? How long do you date before you decide to get married?
It varies. It can go from 6 months to 2 years, generally speaking, even maybe a little bit longer. But most of the time, I meet a girl at 16, 17 years old. I'm going to make plans with her to get married pretty quickly because it takes a while. Like we may have to both join the church, complete that, and then be a member of the church, not get in any kind of trouble so that you're not held up in membership, and then you become members. And then after you're both members and you're not getting in trouble, meaning breaking any rules that would get you shunned, then you can announce that, hey, we're going to get married. And at that point, the girl's parents would plan the wedding. The wedding's normally at the girl's parents' house. And it's a pretty big ordeal. It's a big wedding.
I want to know what would
Yeah.
get you shunned.
Well, he's saying breaking the rules here. I'm just going out on a limb here and assuming that part of these breaking rules is having premarital sex.
Oh, for sure.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
but my assumption is there are probably many people out there who have had premarital sex in the Amish community, but then were very, very silent about that.
Like probably 99% of them.
Wait, what percent?
Maybe 99. I don't know. I don't have.
Human nature,
Yeah.
my love.
Yeah.
Chemistry.
We believe in not having premarital sex.
Right.
We didn't.
Yes, we did not. But I
That's
mean,
us.
he's right.
Yeah.
You put two 16, 17-year-olds together. I mean,
In a
like-
bed tied together.
In a bed. Yeah. I did not to like sidetrack too much, but this is exactly what my mom got excommunicated because she started reading the Bible more in depth and realized this is a sin and we're actually putting our youth into this and they excommunicated her for it.
For speaking
So-
out about.
for about putting him in
Yeah.
bed the first date.
Yes.
Wow. Wow. So is she still out of the Amish faith as well?
So my mom, she did get out, like she wasn't a part of the church anymore. I mean, she's since passed, so
Mm,
she's
sorry.
obviously not with us anymore, but she's smiling from heaven, me doing this interview because, yeah, she was married for 54 years to my dad. And quite a spicy marriage for sure.
Spicy in a good way or in a bad way?
I'd say both. They had a lot of rough years. Very, very entertaining.
So once a couple decides that they're getting married and they make that decision when they're like 16 and a half or 17 or so, is it a decision that's made for love, for passion, for duty, for faith, compatibility? I mean, do they really know each other well? by the time?
Arrangement?
Yeah. What is it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say that a lot of the marriages, they do genuinely love each other and they do get married to be committed to one another. And that is one thing within the Amish community. When they do get married and they make that commitment, it's basically, they see it as like there is no option for separation ever.
Okay.
Although in most cases that works out well, there are some cases where, the partner may get abused and
Yeah.
it's a really sad case. But I'd say overall, it's a really, really, really good thing because the commitment level within the Amish marriage is unlike anything you see, especially nowadays.
Do you think that dialing back from all the modern conveniences plays a role in that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I found that since I left at age 19, my wife left at age, we being outside the Amish community, so to speak, and participating in a lot of the modern conveniences. Although we do some stuff just because the way we grew up and we recognize like, hey, it's better to not have a TV. It's better to try to minimize using technology all the time or sometimes do stuff that inconveniences our lives. And I think that is a huge piece of it in the community because they just don't have TV and they don't have all the distractions. It's pretty romantic actually to take a ride in a horse and buggy
Yeah.
and cuddle up to each other whenever it's really cold outside and you're almost freezing. And so there's some of those things are built in and some of the Amish recognize it. Some of them don't, some of them, it's just tradition. Like this is just what we do.
The difference is you don't pay someone an exorbitant fee to go on your horse and buggy ride.
That's right.
No, absolutely not.
What kind of daily rituals would you say are part of the Amish culture that really strengthen that commitment?
Yeah, it's really good. The first thing that comes to mind is that they have a set of rules. And we just by default, again, my wife and I kind of follow this and we see it differently from the friends that we have that have no Amish background at all. But my wife and I follow the rule of like, she's the homemaker, I'm the provider. And in the Amish community, that's not a discussion. It's not like, hey, like you have this talent over here, why don't you go do this, and then I'll stay home and watch the kids. As a husband and wife, those rules are just put in place, and the women are always at home. Now, will you find a woman here and there that loves to go outside the home and do stuff or make money? Absolutely. Like my mom would bake goods, and we would go sell those baked goods. And she would do that on the side, but she would do that with all the girls, 4 girls at home. So the girls would help her cook and clean and all of that. But then once a week, she would go sell these baked goods that they've made in the home. So that's one thing that I noticed is like the Amish, that's like, they don't discuss who's like at home or who's off doing work. Like that's set in place.
Mm. No, not even discussed. It's like,
Not
here's
even
your role.
discussed. Yeah.
Yeah.
In your family experience, does that help strengthen your marriage to have those roles very clearly delineated?
Yeah, I mean that's something that my wife and I definitely talked about because it's not built in with the outside culture, right?
Mhm.
She's way smarter than I am. She could go get like a high-paying job, right? But and that's something we actually did discuss before starting a family was, do we kind of take the same path? And I think it was without even question that we would. She loved being a mother and taking care of the kids. And I love providing for the family. I don't really particularly care to be gone all the time away from the family. So trying to figure out ways to be creative and provide for the family while still being around the family, doing stuff with them. So that's kind of how we handle that now. But yes, I'd say we definitely follow that same path. It's the way we grew up.
It's kind of similar to the conversation that we had and what we decided. We knew we had the decision, but I chose to stay home and raise our children.
And yeah, I think the key difference is that is an intentional decision.
Right.
It wasn't a decision made out of uh, no power on your part,
Right.
right?
That was an intentional decision that we made. And once my kids were all in school, I worked during the days when they were gone. I would be home when they came home. And
Yeah.
then when they were getting close to leaving, went back to grad school. And so I am new in my
Here
career.
you are.
Yeah. In the
Yeah,
other half of life.
that's great.
So if marriages are struggling within the Amish community, how does the community handle that? Or is it just kept secret?
Let's first clarify like the different Amish communities. So there's like Swartz and Trooper, the most conservative, and then everything kind of advances from there. So there's probably, let's just say hypothetically, there's 20 different Amish communities or different ways of living within the Amish. And the most conservative one is the way that I grew up. And so I'm going to give from that perspective. They don't have a lot of resources, unfortunately, to help marriages. And that's one thing that my wife and I have been very intentional with is just bringing different perspectives in to teach us how to be better partners for one another. Because we both come from homes where a marriage looked like a strong commitment with very little respect for one another.
Interesting.
It's kind of a double-edged sword where the Amish are very, very good at being committed to one another and they'll stay true to their partner in most cases and they'll serve their partner in the ways that they're taught to do. But then when it comes down to like actual respect and love, they have no idea how to do that part. They just they just don't incorporate that in their culture. Like me kissing my wife, as simple as that. I only ever saw my dad kiss my mom one time, and it was when she was on her deathbed.
Oh, my goodness.
I think this is a great time here listening to you, Enos, to stop, to pause, and to think about this is why we're here to get perspective, right? We all have beliefs, we all have cultures, we all have things that we do that we've grown up with, that we've incorporated in our lives, who we are, our identity. Some of that's religious, some of it's social, cultural, whatever. And they're all good, all of them different and good to a certain extent. but by providing
Yeah.
perspective for our audience to see how other people do it, it allows us to have just a better idea of how things work, how the world works, how do other ideas collide and interweave and connect with the ones that we already hold true. And to those of you listening out there watching, leave some comments on some of your culture, some of your ideas, some of the things that you hold so dearly to your heart. Like these Amish, commitment is huge. It's
Above all.
something to be really respected by all of us. But at the same time, there are other things that, because of so much emphasis on commitment, that there are other things that are left out. And
Intimacy,
yeah, and so
connection.
we want to. That's why we want to bring everyone together, all their perspectives, all of your perspectives in the audience too. Just leave some comments on what you think you hold true.
Yeah. So, Enos, how have you then taken the best of that, but been able to make some adaptations with your wife to make your marriage stronger? You said you saw that your father only kissed your mother once, but that's not your practice, right?
Yeah.
What kinds of things do you do differently?
Yeah. I mean, just making out all the time, right?
There
Does
you
that
go.
strengthen your marriage?
Yeah. No, that was more humorous answer, but I would say just be more intentional, right? Recognizing those things and realizing that, yeah, that wasn't common, but what is common is like respecting one another. Like that actually, I believe, builds a marriage very much. Like you're trying to understand the other person and meet their needs, and they're trying to understand you and meet your needs. And sometimes that's lopsided for a season, like depending what one person is going through versus the other one. So
Yeah.
just being intentional with that and showing affection, which is just a foreign language to us. Like showing affection is not something we grew up with or really have any experience with, but being out away from it and realizing like, man, as a kid, I really wanted affection. I was a very, I guess, affection seeking kid, and I didn't get that. So I need to be really, really intentional with my kids to make sure I show that to them.
That's great. So, what do you see in modern marriages that really feels harmful or confusing from perhaps an Amish perspective? You got to be looking at all those marriages around you now that you're out of that Amish community. Do you see patterns of what might be dangerous or harmful to the marriages?
I do. Yeah, and that's a really good question. Very deep question, actually, or deep to my heart, because I look at the modern culture now and see all the tools that are available to go cheat on your wife. And
Mm.
to think that the access to what's available out there is just, it's devastating to our marriages. And for me, it's pretty easy not to participate in that, I should say, because I never saw that as an option growing up. I didn't see that.
Grew up with
Um,
commitment.
yeah, I grew up with commitment, even though maybe sometimes it didn't look very good. Like my parents fought a lot, but no matter what, they were committed to serving one another. And, you know, we're all going to go through really hard seasons of life. Like every
Yeah,
one of us, if
that's
we
right.
live long enough, there's going to be some ups and downs. And then I think just the most beautiful thing is when we see people staying committed to one another when they're going through a hard time, like maybe your partner's going through a hard time. I know my wife and I have been through those, and just staying committed to one another through those times, because that's what we said we would do in the beginning. I think with all the modern technology that's available for someone that is struggling within their marriage to just get on Tinder or get on one of these dating sites and start looking at a partner that they may be attracted to and start thinking that that person would be better for them. I don't know. You guys are in the marriage space. This is just a hypothetical, I guess, but I think the percentages of marriages that actually do find a new partner, in most cases, it's not a better choice for them. It's just a delayed deal. It's a delayed issue that they're having to deal with down the road, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think a lot of times it takes doing your own personal internal work.
It's a new set of
Yeah, that's
problems, right?
yeah, it's a
Right.
great way to put it. It is that internal work that an individual gets to do when you're confronted with a challenge within the marriage. And I guess to my point, that is the biggest thing that I see is people are too quick to maybe be attracted to someone else.
Yeah, that is a huge threat to marriage,
Yeah.
to happiness, to family.
Yeah.
So, do you have any stories from your own community pre marriage or from your own life now that show you the power of lifelong commitment in marriage?
Ooh, that's really good. I'll share a story from my parents, just watching them.
Okay.
And I surely have plenty of my own, but for the sake of today, I'll share a story from my parents within their marriage. So, like I mentioned earlier, they were married for 54 years. It's just a horrendous start to their marriage because they got married within the Amish community through the ways that I explained earlier. They moved to Canada and they have 3 boys, my 3 oldest brothers, and they had a house fire and the house burned down and they lost my 3 oldest brothers, their only
Oh.
children at the time. So just having that foundation and not really knowing how to recover from that. Like I said, in our culture, we didn't have traditional counseling or people that we could necessarily go to that were trained professionals on how to deal with that kind of trauma.
Yeah, no
So I
resources.
think just no resources really. And so very early on, my parents developed friendships from the outside world because I think families from non-Amish families understood what they're actually going through. And that kind of created this almost bullyish kind of situation within the Amish community because like now we're outcasts, right? Because we have friends that are outside the community. Not that you can't have friends. It's just we're probably spending more time with those friends, or they were, than with like being really close with some of the Amish families. So that being said, they had a rocky start to their marriage. And I saw that as a kid growing up, just lots of conflict and not knowing how to resolve conflict. But that commitment was there. And what I realized in their later years of marriage, because they've both since passed, that was their marriage. I always saw it as a kid as something, I guess, negative. And even though I didn't like the tension, I don't think that was necessarily good all the time. But they always recovered from that and they always had their way of showing love to one another. So it's like this beautiful relationship that one day you wake up and realize that's actually what it was. It wasn't just all negative, but as a kid, like seeing that, you're like, man, mom and dad are fighting, but they didn't really know how to communicate. So when I learned that, then it was a lot easier to say, okay, well, mom and dad, they are messed up because of what they went through, or they have issues because of what they went through, but they're still there for one another. They're still showing up for one another. Because guess what? You change partners, you're still going to have issues you're going to have to work through. So it's not the different partner that's really going to make this relationship better, unless there's like actual physical abuse. I'm talking about just verbal conflict, right? So I'd say that's the one story that I look back on. And like I said, I didn't see that until 2 years before both my mom and dad passed is when I finally saw their relationship for what it was. Because whenever the kids weren't around, they were having a great time. Like they were going on dates, which Amish people don't do, but they live so close to town. They would go on dates and, I found stuff out after they passed that was just made my heart happy because they had their way of showing love to one another. And it wasn't a traditional way. It wasn't the kissing and the hugging and stuff like that.
That's perspective.
I love that.
That is perspective that comes with just pulling back, with seeing things from a different point of view. Thank you for sharing that story. My heart breaks for both of your parents who lost 3 children. Statistics
Yeah.
show if a couple loses 1 child, chances in the modern society of staying together are small. It's typically
Yeah.
really, really tough. So to lose 3 early in your marriage, I can't imagine the trauma that must have caused them, but yet they did stay committed to each other, which is really so beautiful.
Yeah.
We've loved
Yeah.
this conversation and could talk for a lot longer, but I'm just wondering if you could invite our listeners to take one principle from your Amish culture and apply it this week to their marriage relationships. What would that be?
Yeah. I'd say just embrace the challenges within the marriage, because as an individual, the conflict or the challenge that I'm maybe faced with in that moment, most of the time has something to do with something that's going on within my heart. And so if I embrace that challenge versus trying to separate myself from it, then I'll find something that I can personally work on.
I love it.
Very well said. If people are more interested in learning about your Amish culture and faith tradition, tell us again the name of your podcast.
Yeah, you can find us on YouTube at the Amish Media Group, also known as the Amish Rebel Podcast. So you can
Amish Rebel.
find us on
Right.
the Amish Rebel.
That's great.
Yeah, so there's a lot of Amish rebels on there.
Oh.
There's a lot of great stories. And we're also on TikTok and Facebook and those other platforms. But yeah, we mostly interact with the audience on YouTube or TikTok.
Great.
Well, thanks for joining us today, Enos.
Thank you, guys.
Lots of things that we can learn if we slow down our lives just a little bit, be intentional, and make each other a priority in our marriage a commitment.
We hope that this struck a chord with you, just learning some perspective from the Amish. And we hope to see you next time on another exciting episode of Marriage IQ.